The rain fell in thick, heavy sheets as Emily stood outside the house she had once called home. Her fingers clenched the handle of her suitcase, knuckles white from the pressure. The glow from the windows illuminated the manicured front yard, casting shadows over the perfectly paved walkway. Inside she could hear laughter, her husband's laughter. But worse, a woman's laughter followed. That woman was Lisa. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Emily had once thought her life was secure, built on a foundation of love and trust. But 6 months ago, she had learned a cruel truth. Her husband, Daniel, had been having an affair. Not just a fling, but a full-blown relationship with a younger woman. Lisa, an ambitious and manipulative paralegal from his law firm. The betrayal had come in waves. First, the discovery of messages on his phone. Then the late nights, the whispered phone calls. And finally the confrontation. A moment burned into Emily's mind. "You don't make me happy anymore, Emily," Daniel had said, his tone cold and detached. "Lisa does. And I think it's best if you move out." She had fought. She had screamed. She had begged for an explanation. But Daniel had already made up his mind. Within weeks, Lisa had moved into the house, her house. The place Emily had decorated, furnished, and turned into a home over 10 years of marriage. And now, standing in the cold rain, she watched Lisa through the window. The woman lounged on Emily's couch, drinking wine from Emily's glass, wearing Emily's robe. Laughter bubbled from her lips as Daniel leaned in close, whispering something in her ear. Lisa threw her head back and laughed harder. That was the final crack. The moment Emily's pain turned to steel. She turned on her heel and walked away. They thought they had won. They had no idea what was coming. Emily sat across from her attorney, Mark Holloway, in a sleek downtown office. The papers spread before her felt like her life laid bare. Her marriage reduced to legal contracts and financial statements. "There's no easy way to say this," Mark said, adjusting his glasses. "Your husband has filed for divorce. Given the circumstances, he's requested that you vacate the marital home." Emily swallowed hard. "He's kicking me out." Mark hesitated, then nodded. "Legally, the house is in both your names. However, Daniel is pushing to retain ownership, claiming you have no income of your own to sustain it. If you don't contest it." "I do contest it." Emily's voice was firm, despite the lump in her throat. Mark sighed, tapping his pen against the desk. "Then you need a plan. A damn good plan." Emily sat back, her mind racing. She had sacrificed everything for Daniel. Her career, her independence, her stability. She had supported him while he built his firm, handled their home, and ensured his life ran smoothly. And now, he was discarding her like an old sweater that no longer fit. But what Daniel didn't know, what he had never cared to ask about, was that Emily wasn't just some dependent housewife. She was smart, very smart. She had spent the last few years working in real estate consulting, something Daniel had never paid attention to. And over time, she had learned about quietly shifting assets, legal loopholes, and ownership structuring. She looked at Mark. "If the house is in both our names, is there a way to ensure it stays under my control?" Mark studied her for a moment. Then slowly he smiled. "There might be." Lisa ran her fingers over the marble countertops, admiring her reflection in the polished surface. "This place is incredible," she mused. "I still can't believe she left so easily." Daniel smirked, taking a sip of whiskey. Emily never had the spine for a fight. "She knew she couldn't afford to keep up with the mortgage without me." Lisa giggled, curling against him. "Well, I think we should celebrate. I mean, this is our home now." Daniel wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. "And soon enough, we'll make it completely ours. Once the divorce is finalized, I'll have the house in my name, and we can start fresh." Lisa's eyes gleamed. She had played her cards perfectly. She knew how to manipulate men like Daniel. A little flattery, a little seduction, and they crumbled like sandcastles in a rising tide. She took a long, indulgent sip of wine. She had won. Or so she thought. The first sign of trouble came a week later. Lisa was lounging in the sunroom, flipping through home decor magazines, when the doorbell rang. She barely looked up. "Daniel, can you get that?" No answer. With an exaggerated sigh, she got up and walked to the front door, swinging it open. A man in a tailored suit stood on the doorstep, holding a thick envelope. "Lisa Carter." She frowned. "Who's asking?" The man smiled politely and extended the envelope. "You've been served." Lisa's stomach dropped. "What?" The man didn't elaborate. He simply turned and walked away. Hands shaking slightly, she tore the envelope open. And as she read the documents, her face lost all color. The house wasn't Daniel's to give her. It wasn't even his to keep. Somewhere along the line, months before Lisa had even entered the picture, Emily had done something Daniel had never seen coming. She had quietly transferred full ownership of the house to herself. Legally, the house was hers alone. And now, Lisa was squatting in someone else's home. She staggered backward, heart pounding. "Daniel!" she screamed. Footsteps thundered down the stairs as Daniel appeared, irritation flickering across his face. "What the hell is it, Lisa?" She shoved the papers into his chest. "Explain this." Daniel's brows furrowed as he scanned the documents. And then, for the first time since their affair had begun, Lisa saw something on his face that unsettled her. Panic. Daniel's face turned a shade paler as his eyes darted across the legal documents in his hands. His grip tightened, knuckles whitening, as his mind struggled to process what he was reading. Lisa's voice cut through his shock. "What the hell does this mean, Daniel?" she demanded, her breath sharp and uneven. Daniel swallowed, his throat dry. "It means..." He hesitated, barely able to get the words out. "It means this house isn't mine." Lisa's nostrils flared. "What do you mean it's not yours? You said you owned it. You said we'd be fine." Daniel's head was spinning. His mind reeled back, trying to piece together how this had happened. He had assumed everything was going according to plan. Emily would leave quietly, the divorce would finalize, and soon, he and Lisa would move forward with their life. But somewhere along the way, Emily had outmaneuvered him. "She changed the deed," he muttered, more to himself than to Lisa. "She must have done it before I even filed for divorce." Lisa grabbed the papers and shoved them against his chest. "Fix it. Call your lawyer. Call somebody. Do something." Daniel didn't respond. He was already pulling out his phone, dialing his attorney's number. The line rang twice before Mark Holloway answered. "Daniel, I was expecting your call." "Cut the small talk," Daniel snapped. "What the hell is this? Why does it say Emily owns the house?" Mark sighed on the other end. "Because she does." Daniel's blood ran cold. "That's impossible. My name was on the deed." "It was," Mark said evenly. "Until 6 months ago. She legally transferred it to herself using an asset restructuring strategy. Very smart move, by the way. I assume you didn't read the documents she had you sign back then." Daniel's stomach churned. He vaguely remembered Emily handing him paperwork a while ago, saying it was just some refinancing stuff to lower the mortgage rate. He hadn't even looked at it. He had been too busy with Lisa. "Are you telling me I signed my house away?" he hissed. Mark exhaled. "Legally, yes. You gave up your rights to the property without realizing it. And now, Emily owns everything." Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. "Then I'll fight it. Take her to court." "You can try," Mark said. "But legally, there's nothing to fight. The house is in her name, Daniel. It's over." The call ended with a sharp click. Lisa's face was twisted with fury as she paced the living room. "Are you saying we're going to lose everything?" Daniel didn't answer. Lisa's voice turned venomous. "She played you, Daniel. She played us both." It was 2 weeks later when the inevitable happened. Lisa and Daniel had spent days trying to find a way around the legal disaster they had walked into. Lisa had threatened lawsuits, screamed at Daniel, and even tried to persuade him to negotiate with Emily. But nothing worked. And then, on a crisp Friday afternoon, the front door opened. Emily stepped inside. She looked different, stronger, more confident. She had always been graceful, but now there was an edge to her presence. Quiet, unshakable power. Lisa was standing in the hallway when she saw her. Her mouth opened to say something sharp, but Emily raised a hand, silencing her effortlessly. "This is my house," Emily said coolly. "I suggest you pack your things." Lisa's face contorted in rage. "You manipulative little..." Emily cut her off again. "Don't embarrass yourself, Lisa. You should have done your research before moving into a house that wasn't yours." Lisa took a step forward, but Emily didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled a piece of paper from her bag and handed it to Lisa. "What is this?" Lisa spat. "An eviction notice," Emily replied simply. Lisa's hands trembled as she read the words. "You are hereby given 48 hours to vacate the premises. Failure to comply will result in legal action and forcible removal." Lisa turned to Daniel, her face twisted in disbelief. "Say something." But Daniel didn't speak. He didn't even look at Lisa. His jaw was clenched, his pride shattered. He had lost. Emily's eyes flickered to him, her voice cold and unwavering. "You never even saw me coming, did you?" Daniel's silence was his only answer. Lisa stormed upstairs, her footsteps loud with fury, muttering curses under her breath as she started shoving clothes into a suitcase. Emily turned away, her work done. She had no interest in watching them scramble. But just before she stepped out, she heard Lisa shriek, her voice filled with disbelief. "Where's my jewelry?" Daniel's brows furrowed. "What?" Lisa spun around. "The jewelry. My gold bracelet. My earrings. My designer bags. They're gone." Emily didn't even turn around as she opened the front door. "Oh, those. They weren't yours. Just like this house. I took back what belonged to me." And with that, she walked out, letting the door swing shut behind her. Lisa's screams of frustration echoed through the grand halls of the house that was never truly hers. Emily had taken everything. She stomped down the stairs, dragging her suitcase behind her. Her face flushed red with rage. "This isn't over," she spat at Daniel. "I gave up everything for you, and now I have nothing." Daniel didn't respond. He stood motionless in the foyer, his mind spiraling into an abyss of realization. He had lost his house, his dignity, and now his mistress. Lisa shoved past him, her stilettos clicking furiously against the marble floor as she stormed toward the door. "Don't call me," she hissed. "Don't text me. You're not worth it." The front door slammed behind her, leaving Daniel standing alone in the hollow silence of what was no longer his home. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of true defeat. Emily sat in a cozy cafe across town, sipping her tea, watching as Lisa's departure played out on the live security feed she had installed weeks ago. A small, satisfied smile played on her lips. This was justice. She had meticulously planned every step of this. She had anticipated Daniel's arrogance, Lisa's entitlement, and their complete underestimation of her intelligence. But she wasn't quite done yet. Her phone buzzed. It was Mark. "You did it," he said, his tone amused. "They're out." "I know," Emily said, taking another sip of her tea. "I watched it unfold beautifully." Mark chuckled. "Well, you're about to enjoy this even more. You remember that little financial audit I suggested?" Emily's smile widened. "Tell me." Mark sighed dramatically. Turns out Daniel wasn't just careless in his marriage. He was careless in his finances too. "I had an investigator look into his firm's accounts. And, well, he's been hiding money. Offshore accounts, undeclared income. The IRS is very interested in him now." Emily leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes for a moment. This was better than she had imagined. She had known Daniel was unethical, but to cheat on her and commit fraud, that was poetic. "What's the timeline?" she asked. Federal investigation starts next week. His assets will be frozen within the month. He's going to be too busy dealing with legal troubles to even think about fighting you for anything else. Emily hummed in satisfaction. Perfect, Mark chuckled. Remind me never to get on your bad side, Emily. He smirked. Wise decision. A month later, Daniel sat in his lawyer's office, sweat beading at his temple. This is insane, he muttered, gripping the edge of his chair. They can't do this to me. His lawyer sighed. Daniel, they can and they are. The IRS has evidence of unreported earnings and tax evasion. You're facing serious legal consequences. Daniel ran a shaky hand through his hair. He had lost his house, his mistress, and now his career was crumbling too. He reached for his phone in desperation. His fingers hovered over Emily's contact. She wouldn't answer. He knew that, but he still tried. The call rang once, twice, and then went straight to voicemail. Emily, please. I need to talk to you. Messed up. I know I did. But we were married for 10 years. That has to mean something. Just call me back. Please. The call ended. And deep down he knew she would never call back. Emily sat on her newly restored back porch, a glass of wine in her hand, watching the sunset. The house had never felt so peaceful. No tension. No betrayal. No unwanted guests. She had won. And best of all, she hadn't just taken back her house. She had destroyed the people who thought they could take everything from her. As she sipped her wine, she allowed herself to laugh. Not in bitterness, but in triumph. Because for the first time in a long time, she was free. Dear viewers, thank you for watching.